You listen to cartoons?
I wasn't going to ask.
Chairman Thompson, are you ready and available?
Yes, I am.
All right. Before we get started, I just want to run through the meeting notes. Y'all know this is being recorded, and Tony Gilliam is here to dictate. There she is. Most people will be muted upon arrival, so keep yourself on mute until it's your case or your turn to speak. You can unmute yourself, or if we see you talking and not hearing you, maybe one of us will unmute you, maybe me. A little bit of housekeeping. We do have one preliminary matter. Jared Norton from Morrison Sign is here. He's got a request for an extension of a board order, commission order. And then, Mr. Chairman, I believe you're going to swear in everyone individually. As usual, staff will present first. The commission will ask questions of staff or the applicant, and the applicant can present. And then the board can ask questions that won't count against your time. So with that, if you want to get started, we can take the preliminary item first, Mr. Chair.
Sure, go right ahead. The Mr. Norton, please come forward.
Yes.
All right.
Do I need to swear him in?
Yeah.
Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Would you repeat your name and your affiliation to this case, sir?
Yes, my name is Jared Norton with Morrison Sign Company here on the behalf of Car Supply, located at 1415 Old Leonard Avenue here in Columbus. And I'm here to ask for an extension on Commission Order GC 19-047. As you can imagine, the COVID pandemic has put a slow to some projects, and supply had been approved, or this variance had been approved back in December of 2019. The plan was to build and erect this sign this year, but with COVID, funds for this project had been put on hold. We were waiting to see how the pandemic would play out. It looks like numbers are going up. So it does not look like we will be able to move forward with this project this year, and that is why we ask for a year extension on this.
Okay, thank you, sir. Are there any questions from anyone? Hearing none. In this order. Can someone unmute themselves?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to extend this variance. Jared, would a year be enough? And I'm not sure if that's the right timing.
That's what I requested.
Yeah, I would like to make that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would second it.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. All the members in favor of this order, please use the sign of aye. And do I need to call the roll, Mr. Freeze, or do you think a voice vote is sufficient?
I think for the preliminary matters, you can just call yay or nay.
Okay, all in favor, unmute yourselves and use the sign of aye.
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 And any in opposition, use the sign of nay. Not hearing any. Motion is carried. Mr. Norton, this is then approved for extension. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all.
Okay, we're going to go into the regular agenda then, Mr. Freeze.
Yes.
Okay. In this first case, kind of watched if I use that procedure that you brought forth earlier.
I'll be
First
happy to
case
coach
is GC 20-031 39. With the applicant, please come forward.
Hello.
Who am I?
Yvonne Miller with Branham Sign Company.
Okay, ma'am. Need to swear you in. Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Repeat your name for the record and your affiliation to this case.
It's Yvonne Miller with Branham Sign Company, and we are the sign company representing Aldi.
Did you get that,
I'm
Ms.
having
Gillen?
understanding what she said. I don't know what she said her name is.
Would you mind repeating that slowly, ma'am?
Certainly. It's Yvonne, Yvonne Miller, and I'm with Branham Sign Company, and we are the sign company for Aldi.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this case? Not seeing anyone. Who's presenting this one? Mr. Freeze?
Yeah, I've got the first one. Are you ready? Bill,
Yes.
do you have the PowerPoint ready?
You're on mute, Mr. Benich.
I think Phil was having some issues previously. Let's see if he's back on. Oh, he's crashed. Okay. I'll bring up the PowerPoint then. Oops, there we go. All right. Can everyone see the PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Okay. So the first case is 3945 South Hamilton Road. The site is located at the northwest corner of South Hamilton Road and Blakestone Way. The site is within the Greater Southeast Area Commission and Zone CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The site is currently undeveloped. Surrounding future uses include mainly commercial. There's an apartment residential complex, or extended stay hotel complex that is planned to be developed to the west. The applicant proposes adding a wall sign to an elevation that has no public entrance. An elevation with no public entrance is limited to a maximum graphic area of 16 square feet. The applicant is requesting a variance to increase the graphic area from 16 square feet to 59.07 square feet. So if you take a look at the site plan, the building is oriented to the south with the main entrance currently right here. Proposed wall sign would go on the western elevation right here. And here's a depiction of what that proposed wall sign will look like. The Columbus Citywide Planning Policy states that wall signs should not obstruct or interfere with architectural lines and should be sized to fit with the building's facade design. The proposed wall signs complement the scale and architecture of the building facades, and thus planning is in support. The Greater Southeast Area Commission recommends approval of this request as well. City staff can recommend approval as the proposed wall graphic meets the recommendations of the Columbus Citywide Planning Policies. C2P2 states that the wall signs should not obstruct or interfere with architectural lines and should be sized to fit within the building's facade design. It should also be noted that the elevation will be facing Hamilton Road. We have no conditions, and with that, we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Okay, well, I think you did a very good job of explaining what we need. We want both signs to be in balance on that building. As you can see, the building is designed around that sign. It fits with the space. It fits architecturally speaking. So we are just asking to have the sign on the side of the building the same as the one on the front so that the appearance is architecturally pleasing.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Is there anyone that has a question? Does anyone else in the audience that would like to comment or has a question about this application?
I have a question. This sign and where it's going, is it facing the road?
Would you mind identifying yourself when you guys speak up so everyone knows? Thanks, Rich.
Okay. This sign, is it facing the road or is it facing the parking lot?
Rich, this sign will be facing the road. The public entrance is directed to the south, so that's why this needs the variance, because even though this is facing Hampton Road, there is no public entrance, and they're relegated to a 16-square-foot sign. So
ultimately, if somebody driving by wouldn't be able to know their building is there without this sign on it, correct?
Correct. There will be a proposed ground sign, though. Or there is a proposed ground sign. But I agree with your thought process.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Not hearing any. Finding a fact on this, it appears appropriate for this sign and this location for this building. Do I have a motion on the finding of fact?
Rich Mashinsky, yes.
Second.
Bender, second.
Now, do I need to call a roll on this vote, Mr. Freeze?
Now you need to make a law, which is whether you think the variance should be approved or not.
I believe it's appropriate for this location, so let's call the roll on that.
Well, we need a motion and a second on that.
We did have one.
Well, you need a motion and a second for both the findings of fact and the conclusion of law.
Okay, this is Rich.
Okay, here's where I'm confused. Do we need to have the vote between those or not?
Yes, you do. You need to vote first on the finding of fact, and then state a conclusion of law, and then a motion for a conclusion of law, a second, and then vote on that.
That's what I thought I was doing. So,
sorry.
And my only question was whether or not we needed to have a roll call vote on the finding of fact or a voice vote.
A roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Would you go ahead and call the roll in?
Okay, Mr. Hoy?
Yes, on the finding of facts.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Mashinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Carey?
Yes.
Mr. Bender?
Yes.
Chairman Thompson?
Yes, and the finding of fact is approved. Now let's move to the conclusion of the law, which I believe to be appropriate for this particular location based upon the information provided. And let's call the roll on the conclusion of the law.
I think he said we have to make a motion on the conclusion.
Oh, that's correct. You're correct. That's correct.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion.
I'll make that motion, Rich.
I'll second the motion.
Did you get that? Then let's vote on that motion for the conclusion.
Mr. Hoy?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Mashinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Carey?
Yes.
Mr. Bender?
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes, and it is approved. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it very much.
Okay, our next case is 1400 Bethel Road, TC 20-032. The applicant, please come forward.
Hello, good afternoon.
Who's speaking?
This is Sarah Gold with Skilk & Gold Real Estate Development.
I need to swear you in, ma'am. Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Would you repeat your name for the record and your affiliation to the case?
My name is Sarah Gold. I'm with Skilk & Gold Real Estate Development Company. We are the applicant and developers of this project.
Thank you. Who's presenting this?
Hi, I'm Chair Thompson.
Mr. Benich.
Mr. Merritt.
Thank you.
All right. So we've got GC 20-032 at 1400 Bethel Road. This is located at the north corner of Bethel Road and Go Down Road. And the parcels are zone C4 commercial. The two parcel site is 2.69 acres and developed with a car rental facility and restaurant building. Abutting uses that front Bethel Road and Go Down Road are predominantly commercial. To the north along Go Down is also a home complex zoned ARD apartment residential district. A cheap fuel station and convenience store is proposed at the location. The applicant proposes to install a 12-foot tall ground sign with automatic changeable copy for fuel price. As this site is within the Bethel Road Regional Commercial Overlay, variances are requested to permit automatic copy for fuel sales, increase the maximum sign area from 8 to 104.4 feet, increase the maximum height of the ground sign from 8 to 12 feet, and increase the maximum height of the sign base from 3 to 4.71 feet. The height and area increases are requested to raise the profile of the sign above a decorative 4-foot tall fence along Bethel Road. Planning does not oppose the request. Staff continues to encourage the applicant to reduce the size of the sign, with 8-foot sign being preferred as recommended by the plan. Staff notes that additional height and area may be supported, with the 4 feet of fencing being a mitigating consideration for visibility of the signage. The Northwest Civic Association recommends approval of this request. Staff has traditionally recommended approval of automatic changeable copy signs in overlay districts for fuel pricing only. Staff can further recommend approval of the increased sign area and sign height as they are to compensate for decorative fencing along Bethel Road. And we have 2 conditions: that the applicant shall commit to the graphic within the staff report of the sign, and the applicant shall commit to providing the 4-foot tall fencing along Bethel Road that's called out on the site plan, the presentation. And that's all.
Mr. Benich, do we have a picture of that fencing or?
We do not.
Of the site? Okay.
Actually, I'm off on this site plan. It's just a.
Is that existing fencing or proposed?
Proposed.
Okay. Thank you. Ma'am, would you present your case, please?
Absolutely. Thanks so much. We are proposing the 4-foot decorative front fence with the brick piers along Bethel Road as a recommendation and requirement from the planning department, which is urging us to make this request for the increased height, simply to kind of raise our visibility over the 4-foot fence. So that is really the only request from the 8-foot foot height that is allowed per code to raise above the 4-foot fence. I'm happy to answer any questions associated with that.
Are there any questions? Not hearing any. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak to this case? No. then my only question was making sure you propose the fence and planning is suggesting raising the sign is okay because of the, correct?
Yeah. In our conversations with planning suggested that we build this fence. And because of the 4-foot fence, we, the applicant and developers, are requesting the height variance to compensate for the 4-foot fence to increase our visibility, especially coming from the east as cars are driving past the site, so that the 4-foot fence doesn't block a lower 8-foot high fence or sign.
See, that's my confusion. They recommended you build a fence.
Planning has recommended that we build the fence, and we are complying with their request.
Can you tell me why they thought a fence was needed there?
It was part of the kind of design recommendations and part of the C2P2 planning recommendations to try to beautify the Bethel Road corridor. So that we are complying with their request to do so. And they have, they like what we're proposing and are supporting that.
Okay, thank you. I drive that all the time, and it's kind of strange to think there needs to be a fence there, but nevertheless. Do we have any questions from anyone? Not hearing any. Finding a fact is that if there is to be a fence there, it appears that the sign height is appropriate, and I'd like a motion for this variance.
This is Mike Hoy. Yes, I'd like to make a motion to grant this variance.
Is there a second?
This is Pete. I second.
Okay, for the finding of fact, then, can I have a roll call vote for finding of fact based on the motion?
Okay. Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Mashinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Bender,
Yes.
Mr. Hoy,
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes, and now let's move on to the conclusion of law. Seeming the hardship being the fence, in this case, I think that this is appropriate for approval based upon that. And let's vote on the conclusion of law. And do I have a motion for that conclusion?
I will move to close that inclusion.
Mr. Bender, who's the second?
Rich Mashinsky.
Okay, thank you. Can we call the roll for the vote on that conclusion?
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Mashinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Bender,
Yes.
Mr. Hoy,
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes, and it is therefore approved, ma'am. Ms. Gold, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a good evening.
Why is Mr.
Ms.
Cooperman
Gillum?
not voting?
Excuse me?
Mr. Cooperman?
That was my question, but I figured he might be abstaining.
Okay.
Yes,
Is that,
Mr. Cooperman has abstained, is what my understanding is, for the first
Okay.
two cases. Should I call this?
That's correct.
okay. Thank you.
Chair Thompson?
Yes, sir.
I just want to clarify, there seemed to be some confusion as to why the applicant was requesting a fence or why planning was requesting it. It happens to be part of the commercial overlay that states that a surface parking lot or vehicular circulation area shall be screened from all abutting public streets with a wall or a fence or a continuous row of shrubs to a minimum height of 3 foot 2 feet at time of planting. So in case you're wondering why that was a requirement, why it was in there, that's why.
Yeah, I think normally we see some planting or shrubs or something. What was throwing me? Okay, our third case, 1187 North High Street. Would the applicant please come forward?
Mr. Chairman, did you say case number 4? This is Tracy Deal for the applicant.
No, ma'am. I'm on 3, actually.
Okay.
1187 North High Street. Is there anyone here from, let's see here, day-night sign or?
That would be
North High Street.
I think that's Miss Green, I believe.
Is there anyone here for case number GC 20-034 1187 North High Street? Please unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Green.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Would you mind? Would you please? I need to swear you in. You swear to tell.
I do.
Would you now repeat your name and your affiliation to this case, please?
Hi, my name is Rebecca Green, and I am working with both the applicant and zoning resources with respect to this case.
Okay, thank you. Who's presenting this one?
Okay, that would be me.
Nice.
Okay, this is case GC 20-034 1187 North High Street. It's located on the west side of North High Street, approximately 125 feet south of West 5th Avenue. This is in the area that's served by the Victorian Village Commission. The Victorian Village Commission recommends approval of the variances requested. The applicant proposes to install a projecting wall sign or marquee for a theater that extends approximately 6 feet 4 inches into the right-of-way. This is the Garden Theater. It's been around since 1925, and at one time it did have a distinguishing marquee out front that was there originally to the building, I believe, and carried on for several years beyond that, but since then was removed. But since it was removed, they're asking to do the same thing again, basically, and it is in our world today, it's a projecting wall sign, and is what we call it anyway. And for that reason, they need 3 variances. One is to change a changeable copy sign to extend beyond more than 6 inches into the right-of-way. The second is to grant a special permit for a wall sign extending more than 2.5 feet into the right-of-way. And the third is to allow the copy display other than on the primary face of the sign, and to allow said display not to be on a plane which is closest parallel to the wall in which it is attached. So those are the variances altogether. The city staff is recommending approval of this request, and we are not asking for any conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Green, would you present your case, please?
Thank you so much, and I want to thank all the help and assistance that we received from the city in getting this before you today and answering all my questions. The Garden Theater has been around since the 20s and originally did have a marquee type sign that lasted up until sometime, and we believe until sometime in the mid 80s. And in 2011 to 2012, there was a transfer of the property, and it's currently the home of the Short North Stage. The Short North Stage desires to restore this property back to a more historic, relevant state, and also provide some protection for their patrons and make it a place, a distinguishing landmark in the Short North by restoring this particular sign to the building. So specifically, it is a changeable copy, but this kind of changeable copy is in the form of large gels over an illuminated light box. There'd be one on either side as you are looking at the side of the building, and then there would be 4 in the front. At the center of that front would just be a static Short North Stage marquee plaque. When there was not a performance or a special event that's being advertised on that marquee, just a black opaque gel would be placed in that box. Our goal here is not to attract too much attention, but just enough attention by using this gel system, and also to keep the marquee looking like it may have back in its historic roots. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Okay, are there any questions? So, ma'am, the vertical sign is the only one that's going to be on that face? Is that correct? It no longer has the wraparound kind of sign?
And I apologize if I'm not understanding exactly. The vertical sign is still there. The garden, where it just says garden, that will remain. What we're adding is the marquee sign that is will be extending over slightly over this sidewalk.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you. And that's going to be a changeable copy, but not an electronic changeable copy.
That's correct. It will be gels that are specific for the performances that are being advertised. It will be placed over a light box.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this case? Are there no questions? Hearing no questions, then finding a fact for this is appropriate for this location. Do I have a motion for that finding a fact?
Rich Mushinsky, I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. With that motion, can we call the roll on the finding of fact?
Okay. Mr. Mushinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Bender,
Yes.
Mr. Hoy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes, and now let's do a conclusion of law based upon the information presented and the recommendations. I believe this is appropriate for this location. And let's vote on, I need a motion for voting on this conclusion of law.
Rich Mushinsky again. I'll make that.
Jim Bender, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mushinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Bender,
Yes.
Mr. Hoy,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes, and it's approved, ma'am. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your help.
Next case is 1059 South High Street, GC 20-035. Would the applicant please come forward?
Mr. Chairman, Tracy Deal for the applicant.
Okay, ma'am, I need to swear you in. Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Your affiliation to the case, please. You're the...
I prepared the application. I work for the sign company and I work for Starbucks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
This one.
You get me again. Well, this is case GC 20-035, 1059 South High Street. It's located at the northwest corner of West Redbud Alley and South High Street. This is in the Brewery District Commission area, and they have recommended approval of this request. This is for Starbucks, and it's a proposal to install a ground sign with a digital order confirmation screen and speaker at the drive-through for a restaurant. This is in the area that's served by the urban commercial, or subject to the urban commercial overlay standards. And in the urban commercial overlay, they do not allow automatic changeable copy signs. This is the only reason why they're here. And city staff has no objections to this request, and we recommend approval with no conditions.
Okay, thank you. And would you present your case?
Mr. Chairman, like Mr. Reese said, the proposal is for a digital order screen in the drive-through. The digital order screen is for order confirmation purposes. It's not visible beyond the property lines or outside of the property. It's actually towards the back of the property. The changeable copy is merely for order confirmation and not for advertising purposes. It's not intended to draw attention to the property. It's only intended for the viewing of the vehicle that's in the drive-through. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have. This is necessary for this business to operate, and it is used for the drive-through customer only.
So the ground sign in this deal is just the digital order sign?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions? Anyone else that would like to speak to this case? Not seeing any. Finding of fact, this sign appears appropriate for this location. Do I have a motion to that fact? For the finding of fact. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the motion.
And I'll second it.
All right, thank you. Just jump right in there, gentlemen. I have a motion and second. Need the Mr. Reese.
Okay. Mr. Carey?
Yes.
Mr. Bender? Mr. Hoy?
Yes.
Mr. Cooperman?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Mashinsky?
Yes.
Chairman Thompson?
Yes. Having that out of the way, it with no objections and no conditions, and our finding of fact conclude that this is approval for this location, and we have a vote on the conclusion of law here. I need a motion, excuse me, for this conclusion of law.
I'd like to make that motion for the conclusion of law.
Mr. Hoy, okay, second?
Second.
You get that, Tony? Okay. And we have a vote then, Mr. Reese, on the conclusion of law.
Okay. Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Bender,
Yes.
Mr. Hoy,
Yes.
Mr. Cooperman,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Mashinsky,
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes, and it is approved, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the commission.
Okay, our next case is GC 20-039 at 1025 Lux Avenue. The applicant, please come forward.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Stonefeld, need to swear you in. Need to swear you in. Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Are you, thank you. Would you mind restating your name and your affiliation to the case, sir?
Bruce Sonnenfeld, the applicant.
I'm having trouble hearing you. There you go. Thank you.
Bruce
Who's reading this one?
With his sign from.
This is mine, Mr. Chairman.
Got that. Who, Jamie?
Yes, Jamie. You ready?
Yes.
Okay, 1025 Lux Avenue is located on the south side of Henderson Road, approximately 285 feet east of Kenny Road. The site is developed with two parcels, 010-129-871 and 010-299-997. The site is within the Northwest Civic Association and zoned AR2 apartment residential. The 5.41 acre site is currently developed with a multi-unit apartment complex. Surrounding uses include an auto body shop and a hardware store to the west and offices to the east. The applicant proposes the installation of a 33 square foot wall sign on the 5th floor of the north elevation of a building directed towards Henderson Road, and to install an off-premises ground sign on the adjacent parcel to the west of the site, which again is 010-299-997, which will be directed to Old Henderson Road. A variance is required as a residential wall sign is limited to an elevation of 12 feet, and the proposal will be at 48 feet. A special permit is required for an off-premises graphic, and that would be for the off-premises concept. The Olentangy West Area Plan recommends that signs be placed and sized such that they are in keeping with the scale and size of the building facades and general streetscape. The proposed signs are consistent with these guidelines, and therefore planning supports the proposal. The Northwest Civic Association recommends approval of this request. Staff can also recommend approval as the proposed graphics will meet the guidelines of the Olentangy West Area Plan, and we are not recommending any conditions.
Okay, thank you. Present your case, Mr. Sonnenfeld.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
No? Rich,
Yep.
did you have a question?
Jamie, Jared from Preferred Living. I'm sorry.
Jared, sorry.
Yep, that's okay. Jared Smith, Preferred Living for the applicant. Just one other note.
I need to swear you in, sir.
Yep, no problem.
Swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Now repeat your name for the record and your affiliation to the case, please.
Jared Smith with the applicant, Preferred Living, Lux 88 LLC.
Thank you.
Yep. Just one clarification is the sign, while it is a 5-story building, the sign is actually at the top of the 4th floor.
Right. How high is it?
The height is correct, Jamie.
What did I say?
You just noted it was at the top of the 5th floor of the apartment building. It's only 4 floors in that section where the apartment project is. Your height is correct.
Oh, okay.
Yep, your height is correct. It's just noting that it was on the top of the 4th, not the top of the 5th floor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Summerfeld?
Thank you. And thank you, Jamie. This request is to allow for an off-premise monument sign on an adjacent parcel that is actually serving the parking area for the facility. The parcel is owned by the same entity, and it's just there was some development parcel splits that required us to put an off-premise sign there and to secure a special permit. The sign is allowed to be 64 square feet, and we're only utilizing, I think, 15 or 16 square feet. So we didn't need to get greedy. We just wanted to have a functional sign there. Likewise, for the building sign on the north elevation, it's within code size-wise, within code lighting-wise. The only issue is with the location on the building at an elevated height. And as planning and staff reviewed, the Olentangy West area plan does recommend signs be placed and sized accordingly with the architectural elevations. And this is the natural location for that sign, albeit 30-some feet above the allowance for code. We have got a very muted, understated reverse halo illumination to be respectful to the residential zoning, and we would request approval of such. We believe that without the relief of the work, granting this variance would not be injurious to the neighboring properties and will be helpful to government services.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Summerfeld. Is that sign on the building facing Henderson?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right where that big American flag is.
Yes, I do have a question.
Mike?
Why is it, so my understanding is the parking is on a parcel, the building's on another parcel. Why aren't the parcels just combined together in, the auditor's office?
Mike, Jared,
can speak to that.
I can answer that question. When we originally developed the parcel or the project, we had the parcels that we had. We were able to secure an extra parking lot of approximately 40 spaces that was added later on. But because of construction loans and tax purposes, we have not yet combined those parcels together.
So is your intention to combine them at some point? Because it does make it a bit of a problem if, one parcel gets sold and the other, then it's separated.
I have no desire to separate them in the future. I think there will be a time, probably in the next 18 months, when construction is complete, that we'll be able to combine them. But with financing and mortgages, it made it really difficult to add it at that juncture. So for now, like I said, if we went through a whole bunch of hoops, we wouldn't be in front and had our mortgage modified and everything else. We wouldn't be in front of you guys for the quote off-premise sign as it exists today.
Well, I think it's everything you have designed and drawn looks very appropriate and all that. It was just a question on the parcel.
Sure.
Actually, can I follow up on that, Mike? I have a question too, or a clarification for Jared. Jared, would you then be opposed if you do combine the lots in the future, if we state this, the special permit is for the specific sign proposed and we stamp that drawing?
That's fine.
Great. Okay.
If they're combined in the future, yes, that it will. I guess the off-premise would no longer be valid. That's fine.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Are you making that a condition, Mr. Freeze?
I'm asking you to make that a condition, Mr. Chairman Thompson.
Okay. This particular location and the sign requests seem appropriate for this location, and we will add the condition as stated by Mr. Freeze to. Would you want to restate? As far as the off-premise sign, restating the condition for the off-premise sign?
You want me to repeat the requested condition?
Yes, sir.
The special permit will be valid for the specific ground sign as depicted on the elevation that the chair will stamp.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion? Yes, sir. Do I have a motion to finding a fact that this is appropriate for this location?
I will make a motion to adopt the finding of fact.
Thank you. A second.
Second the motion.
Let's vote on that finding of fact motion then.
Mr. Bender,
Yes.
Mr. Hoy,
Yes.
Mr. Cooperman,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Mashinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes. Moving on with the finding of fact in place, the conclusion for this particular case is that this is meets the requirements for approving this sign location. Let's vote on, I need a motion for the conclusion of law here.
I move to conclude the law here.
Mr. Hoy, thank you.
Are we voting now?
Yes, let's vote on this conclusion of law.
Okay. Mr. Bender,
Yes.
Mr. Hoy,
Yes.
Mr. Cooperman,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Mashinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes, and it is approved. Thank you, Mr. Sommerfeld.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I did not hear who seconded the conclusion of law.
Excuse me?
Do we have a second for the conclusion of law?
It was me,
There
Tony.
was a second, yeah.
For the record, guys, we don't need to, it was me, but for the record, everybody, we don't need to make a motion to adopt a conclusion of law. You do need to make a motion to adopt the finding of facts, but you don't need to do the same thing for the conclusion of law. That's the point of voting.
Thank you, Brian. Awkward. Thank you. Next case is GC 20-024 40 Hutchison Avenue. The applicant, please come forward.
Hi, this is Abby Freeze from Morrison Signs.
Okay, ma'am. Swear to whole truth and nothing. I'm sorry, sir. Let me do one of you at a time.
Okay.
Let me do one of you at a time. Ma'am, swear to whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Repeat your name for the record and your affiliation to the case, please.
Yes, I am Abby Freeze from Morrison Sign Company. I'm the agent.
You, sir, Mr. Thomas, would you swear you in? Swear to whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Would you repeat your name and your affiliation to the case, please?
Joe Thomas. I'm with Metro Development.
Thank you, sir. Who's presenting this one?
This is my case, Mr. Chairman. This is a case that's been before the commission 3 times now, so you should be well versed in its merits. The original proposal was to allow a wall sign to be put in on the 5th floor of a building, and then to increase the aggregate graphic area of total wall and roof signage from 588 square feet to 603 square feet. The commission had given the applicant quite a bit of pushback. So Phil, can you go to the elevations, please? Stop there. So this is what the proposal was. Lincoln Point, which you can see is on that false parapet, is an approved roof sign that the commission approved last year. The request was to add the luxury apartments. After much discussion with the commission, I believe the applicants have, next slide please, have changed their design to then basically amend the graph plan that was approved. So the variances are no longer requested. This is simply an amendment to an approved graphics plan to change that was stamped by the board, or I'm sorry, the commission, to change the design from what was the previous slide to this elevation here. Staff can recommend approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Freeze. Ma'am or gentleman, would you present your case, please?
Yeah, so basically what we're just going to do is resize the point and add the luxury apartment so it'll all fit in the approved square footage at 505 square feet.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this case? Okay. Then, finding a fact, as we discussed the last time we were together, the suggestion was made that they find some way to include this within the space that they had, and they have done so. With that case factor point, I will recommend that this is an appropriate sign for this location.
And I'll make a motion.
Finding a fact, I need a motion
we
for that.
We don't need to make a motion. There's no variance anymore, right, Jamie?
Okay.
That's right. Thank you. That's so. How do you want to?
Finding a fact for a graphics plan, but Robert, are you still there?
Is this a graphics plan now?
So, Robert Tobias, City Attorney. In the past, we've not had to do findings of fact graphics plans. What are your thoughts on current recommendations?
Yeah, no, it's only going to be if there's a variance.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So how do we vote on this, Robert?
Call the roll.
Just vote on it. I'm sorry?
Do we just vote on this as
just vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just vote on it. Yeah.
Okay. And can we have the roll call for this?
Mr. Hoy.
Yes.
Mr. Cooperman.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Mashinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Carey.
Yes.
Mr. Bender.
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes, and it is approved. Thank you for your coming back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next case is GC 20-028. That's 5780 and 5792 North Hamilton Road. Would the applicants please come forward?
We are here.
Okay, Mr. Perry, I need to swear you in. Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Gregory Gallus is also on. He is the partner in the project and attorney.
Okay, would you mind repeating your name and your affiliation to the case for Ms.
Yeah, my name's Gregory Gallus, and I am one of the owners of the project.
I need to swear you in, sir. Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Perry, for Ms. Gillen, would you mind repeating your name and your affiliation?
Certainly, sir. My name is Dave Perry. I'm a consultant to the applicant for this application.
Thank you. Who's presenting this one?
Okay. This is GC 20-028, 5780 and 5792 North Hamilton Road. It is located on the south side of North Hamilton Road, approximately 901 feet east of Old Hamilton Road, in the area that is served by the Northland Community Council, and they recommend approval of the graphics plan requested. There are two code sections that are applicable to graphics plans. That's 3375.1 E2 and 6 and 3382.07A. The applicant is requesting a graphics plan that would otherwise require variances to the standards for the ground signs and the wall signs for two commercial buildings. The ground signs are proposed to be designed to allow 75% of the graphic area to contain panels identifying tenants, with 25% remaining for identification of the complex. The separation of the signs would be reduced from 300 feet to approximately 265 feet, and the monument bases would be brick instead of limestone. 4 wall signs are proposed to identify the in-unit tenants on the walls that do not have a public entrance. Staff is able to support the variance requested since there is no obvious or apparent harm being presented, and most, if not all, the uses would be identified. And we request, so we recommend approval and no conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who's presenting this one, Mr. Perry?
Yes. Proceed.
Please proceed.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Graphics Commission. The site for the graphics plan is very long and shallow, about 620 feet long and about 250, 260 feet deep. It's on the one-way divided road of the new North Hamilton Road that connects Hamilton Road to the New Albany Expressway 161 interchange. The site has been developed with 2 separate commercial buildings that are multi-tenant each, and we have separate identification needs for each building. The graphics plan, in summary, includes 2 ground signs that are slightly less spacing than the 300 feet between ground signs that would otherwise be permitted, and they are shorter and less area than would otherwise be permitted, but request the 4 tenant panels and the center identification not being 50% of the area. Similarly, the wall signs are setting a uniform standard of a 60 square foot background placard with a maximum of 40 square feet of copy area and a uniform style of lighting. The developer, Mr. Gallus, wants to establish a uniform standard for the commercial development with the ground signs as depicted and the wall signs as depicted, regardless of tenant space size. So no tenant, regardless of how many tenant bays they take, would have more than 40 square feet of copy. They are all externally illuminated, backlit, and we have requested certain additional wall signs on the end caps where there isn't a pedestrian entrance due to the one-way travel and visibility of the site. So thank you.
Mr. Perry, are these going to be all similar backgrounds and et cetera?
Yes.
Yes.
The copy will be different, of course, and the tenant colors will be different, but the backgrounds will be all the same.
Okay. This is a graphics plan, so space. Not seeing anyone.
Chair
Mr.
Thompson.
Paul, did you?
Yes, sir. I'd just like to briefly appear on behalf of the Northland Community Council. My name is
Okay, let me
David
swear you
Paul.
in.
Yes, sir.
But all truth, nothing but truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, your name and your affiliation.
My name is David Paul. I chair the Northland Community Council Development Committee.
Thank you.
Chair Thompson, members of the commission, we met with the applicant, Mr. Gallus, and his representative, Mr. Perry, on October 28th. They presented this graphics plan. Our committee was impressed at the effort they've made to address the aesthetics of the site and also minimize graphics clutter along this very heavily traveled corridor, we anticipate. Our committee supported unanimously, that was 17-0, this graphics plan, and we encourage you to approve the plan. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, now, Mr. Freed, we don't need to go through the finding a fact, etc. We could just vote on this with the conclusion that it's appropriate for it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And let's call a roll and vote on this.
Mr. Cooperman,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Mashinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Bender,
Yes.
Mr. Hoy,
Yes.
Chairman Thompson.
Yes. And it is approved. Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Is there anything else, Mr. Freeze, Mr. Rice?
No.
I appreciate your patience in this new format. Particularly your help, Mr. Cooperman, because it's a little bit awkward to do this on every variance. And as far as the conclusions of the law are concerned, I would appreciate any thoughts about that as we go forward.
Okay.
That's the way it should be phrased.
He's going to email some good examples, or a better example than what I provided. So I will forward that to you once I get it from him.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Be safe. And we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a nice
Bye.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.